In the northeast of China, there's a city with over 10 million inhabitants, but at first glance, nothing here seems typically Chinese. The cathedral in the center is Russian Orthodox, and the center is filled with Russian shops and products that you would only know from Russia. And the restaurants are also typically Russian. I flew over 12 hours to China and then spent just as long on the train to explore this piece of Russia in China. So guys, I welcome you from a city of 10 million people in northeastern China, and behind me you can see a church that makes you think, Finn's fairy tale, China, aren't you actually in Russia? And yes guys, that's how it seems here. A city in China that looks like it was beamed straight out of Russia. And today I want to show you this Russian city in the middle of China, its special features, its peculiarities, and all the Russian things you can find here. Follow me through the Russian city in China. As I said, the first thing you see in the center is this Russian Orthodox church. If you were suddenly brought here, you'd instantly think you were in Moscow, St. Petersburg, or Yekaterinburg. But no, you are in China, and the only thing that indicates this are the people, because they are Asian and not Russian. But even if you might be fooled and from behind these costumes suggest that they are Russians, no, they are disguised Chinese people, yes, folks. To reveal the secret of why it feels so Russian here, it's actually quite simple. In the 20th century around 1912, a huge number of Russian settlers came here and called Harbin their home. And it was even so extreme that Harbin was the largest Russian exile community in the world outside of Russia. So nowhere else in the world did more Russians live outside of Russia than here. In 1920, there were 100,000 Russians living in this city.
The Russians weren't just Russian, they were Russian.
The Russian settlers weren't just settlers, they were Russian. Well guys, sometimes I mix up my words a bit, so this is the highest Orthodox Russian church in the entire Far East, so it's really a special building. Before we continue to the central street of the city, which is also very Russian, I want to introduce you to my companion of the last 2 months. It's the Lisbon all-black backpack from Captain & Son. Those of you who follow me on Instagram have already seen it over the past weeks and months. The backpack has accompanied me on every train ride and every flight, and for me, it's the best carry-on backpack there is, the best I've ever had. I think the backpack is not only very stylish, but also very practical in terms of size because it fits into any carry-on, with 25 to 30 liters, but it's designed in a way that it still feels extremely spacious. It has a lot of different compartments, so you could actually travel for several weeks with just this backpack alone. On the back, there's a padded practical laptop compartment where I keep my MacBook. Yes, you can also store other office supplies, such as pens and notepads. I travel light, so I only bring my laptop. You can use the second compartment too. And then you see, you can put your clothes in there for a weekend trip, for a week-long trip, or even if you're traveling for weeks like me. And the very front part of the backpack is my absolute highlight, because Captain & Son provides a built-in wash bag where you can put all your liquids. That way, you're much more efficient at the airport, and of course, you also have all your other things. Always keep your wallet within reach in this front pocket. The Lisbon backpack from Captain & Son is practical and versatile. Whether it's for the office, for sports, for short trips, or for long trips, it always fits in your carry-on luggage. And that's why I got a 10% discount code for you. If you're also interested in a good backpack, with Fin10 you get 10% off all products and all product categories. At Captain & Son for 30 days, so take advantage guys, you have 30 days, yes, go for Captain & Son, support the journey. And let's continue. Right next to the St. Sophia Cathedral, by the way, there's this shopping mall, which with its dome also strongly reminds you of Russia, and is said to have a European Russian architectural style. Very similar to St. Petersburg. You can see it right next to the cathedral. You are tourists from Russia, yes?
We are Portuguese.
How do you like it here, Harbin?
How do you like it from Germany?
People ask you if you get photos or... Yeah, because you're already there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes photos, yeah. Although we're here in a former Russian settlement, you hardly find any Russian tourists here. So you really have to look very carefully to find any... This city isn't touristy. I notice it when I walk the streets since tourists don't usually visit here. People go to Shanghai, to Beijing and so on, but not all the way to the far east of China, to this Russian city, but every now and then you do come across the occasional Russian. Here you can see it continues on the street, these onion domes. People play with that everywhere in the city. That's really this typical Russian thing in cities, even in a city like this, where 10 million people live. It feels extremely overpopulated, with crowds of people everywhere, especially at night. It's just crazy. Guys, I'll show you now what it's like here at night. I really had to squeeze through the crowds. That's how packed it gets here. I'll show it to you now. That's it for today. See you next time. Nice. Just dump in some American industrial sugar. Here in China, you always pay people by scanning a QR code. It worked.
Okay.
And boom, you've paid, right guys? We've now arrived at Sonyang Central Street, and this street screams Russia. And I'll show you a bit why and what you can find here on the street. One of the first things you notice are these stores that are already labeled with Russia and sell Russian products. Na 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 na. Katyusha, a well-known war song from the Soviet Union, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Katyusha, I think that's a military song. I'm right, guys, it's actually a song that was very closely connected to the war. It's about Katyusha, who is longingly waiting for her beloved, who is defending the homeland. So in a Russian store, you film everything about spirits, Russian chocolate, Russian products, even sweets. The store must include the most famous Soviet Union leaders and Russian presidents. You have confetti, of course also the typical Russian pralines, and you find many Matryoshka dolls, a lot of them. I just showed you one store as an example, and I think that's enough. There are at least 20 such stores here as well, on this street. 10 meters further, for example, there's the Torgovy Center Rusi, the Russian goods center with the typical St. Basil's Cathedral. And there's the next store just 10 meters further. And here you basically find the same products as in the other store. You may wonder why there are so many Russian stores when there are hardly any Russian tourists. Many Chinese tourists visit here domestically. The city has over 10 million residents and a fascinating history. That means there are Chinese people who come here as tourists from time to time, and for them, there are these Russian souvenirs. I'll show you a few facades now, a few impressions, so you feel like you're on a European shopping street, or European, like I said, European Russian, something like St. Petersburg or Moscow. You see these elements everywhere here. There are little gimmicks everywhere. There are Matryoshka dolls, and there are also car exhibitions. Beautiful. Schöne, beautiful avenues with trees, onion domes, yes, all sorts of things like that. Next to the Zufingen Cathedral, I would say this is the most Russian place in the city, this street. Some buildings even look a bit like the library near the Kazansky Cathedral. There are definitely similarities, those colorful facades, colorful houses, yeah, it's pretty crazy. By the way, I'm also spending the night here on this Russian street, you could say, and not just in any way, but I'm spending the night like a Russian Tsar. And I'll show you my hotel now because I think it's pretty amazing. I'm paying 40 euros a night, and I think I've never had this kind of luxury in a hotel before, and that's for 40 euros a night. You'll see soon, it's amazing what you can get in China. So you walk through the entrance and you're already greeted by absolute luxury at the reception, in the entrance halls. Everything is decorated, everything is playful. Pictures, Russian paintings, fireplaces. It's supposed to reflect that rich Russian lifestyle a little bit. It feels like everything is fake gilded, especially elevators and similar things. If it rains, of course, guests can also take an umbrella here, with a gold-plated horse as the handle. This wouldn't seem so extreme if it didn't cost 40 euros a night. The price is what shocks me. Guys, so for a luxury hotel it's probably relatively normal, but yeah, so guys, I've now arrived in the hotel room, and here too you can clearly see these Russian influences, the curtains, everything, yeah, you could say it's a bit cheesy, but somehow also cool. But the cool thing is actually all the bonuses you get here. Like I said, I'll mention it one last time, 40 euros a night. You have things like mouthwash, you have creams, You have toothbrushes, all packaged, and even packaged slippers. Yeah, guys, you even have coffee capsules that you can use for free anytime. So there are little gadgets everywhere, and for example here you can see here the toilet opens by itself and is preheated to 34 degrees, the seat is already warm, and it flushes automatically. Yeah, I think things like that are pretty crazy. And yeah, the last scene was when I showed you the hotel room, and now it's just 3 hours later. Yeah, guys, I got some bad news, I'm turning on my phone. And then I was in a slump and just couldn't motivate myself. But that's okay, because at night the city is even more worth seeing, I think. And this way I can show you Harbin at night, which is also awesome. Yesterday was so crowded you could barely walk the streets. Anyway, the street I saw earlier is definitely a refreshing change. And there's a cafe, a restaurant that we're going to try now. So now here we have mine, the Russia Cafe and Food, Russia number 57 with typical Russian food. And today we want to test the authenticity of Russian food in China. The restaurant was closed, but I'll still be here tomorrow, so tomorrow will also be in the video when we try this Russian food. What is extremely popular in China, of course, are these street food stalls, where you can really find everything. Sausages on a stick, octopus on a stick, things you don't even know what they are anymore, on a stick. Yeah guys, so it goes on like this for 200 meters. And you can even eat insects here. I've eaten insects too, but you'll see that in another video. Yeah, that was funny too, because I actually ate a snake. Maybe that video's already out, I'm not sure. Scorpions, caterpillars. Who would eat this here? Or for how many euros? Guys, write it in the comments. Would you eat a scorpion? Would you eat a centipede? By 11 last night, everything was closed except these stalls. I had to eat there, even though the food was nasty. No insects, but I ate something like pork belly on a skewer. That was still okay. Look at that. Whoa, guys, how many euros to eat that? For me, that would have to be a pretty high amount. Snakes are fine, insects are fine, but a spider like this, that's where the fun stops for me. At the end of the street, there's what I think is a really interesting monument that also looks very Russian again. Well, the figures in front of it look very Asian, but otherwise it could just as well be in a post-Soviet country. That's really true. Central Asian vibes. Exactly this kind of thing stands in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. It looks exactly the same. But I told you guys, at night it really makes an impression. The city is beautifully lit. People are still outside at 11 o'clock spending time together. And you can see in the distance the bridge is shining. Forgive me guys if this video is a bit quieter today. Less interaction, less excitement. As I said, I haven't received very good news, so my energy isn't very strong right now. But I still hope you think it's cool that I'm showing you this. Today, I showed you a bit of the proximity to Russia, the Catherine Cathedral, the central street that's very influenced by Russian culture. Today, only a tiny fraction of what was here remains. It was once impressive. In the past, Harbin was even the center of the Russian mafia in the Far East. There were many exiled Russians here who were loyal to the Tsar and had to flee after 1917-1918. And everything here was full of mafia, the nightclubs, the restaurants, everything was run by the Russian mafia. There was Chinese police, but they could do little about it because the Russians were very well organized and the Chinese were overwhelmed. And so this place became a hotspot for this kind of crime. And that's also a fun fact, which I find exciting. Nowadays, as I said, you hardly find any Russians here anymore, so everything has settled down again. And I wanted to tell you this story, that this used to be a hotspot here, and it wasn't unusual for someone to be sitting in a restaurant with a Kalashnikov. All of that happened. That's what I found out. Yeah, crazy. It's 12 o'clock, the streets are almost deserted, although you can still see a few people here and there. And yeah, I'll take you with me again tomorrow to show you what Russian food is like and whether the restaurant is authentic or not. I think that's another pretty fun, interesting thing you can do. A new day has started. and it started off in a fun way. I really felt like prime Justin Bieber when he was 16. Anyway, guys, I woke up sick, although I think you can kind of see it on me. I wanted to try the Russian restaurant with you, so that's where we're going now. I noticed that I almost never show food in my videos, but actually it could be interesting. Plus, I guess I can write it off on my taxes if I show it in the video. That's obviously excellent. There's a Russian restaurant here that's always expensive, even by Chinese standards, about 3 times the normal price. But at least it's part of the video and tax deductible. The first dish was called Russian red soup. I've already eaten, it tastes good, guys, but yeah, almost authentic. Yeah, but well, it's just potatoes, meat, and a bit of vegetables. But now comes the problem, the place wants to rip you off. This is a Russian tourist trap that I'm sitting in. This mashed potato, that's potato, guys. Mashed potatoes aren't even a big portion, costs 4 euros. Next, there's something called Russian curry. That's what it was called on the menu. Yeah, so everything has been very authentic so far because these are very simple dishes, just potato, put some meat in. You can already sell it as Russian, but curry. Do you guys know that? I also ordered a salad, and at the end I'll tell you the final price of this bill. That's still exciting. Okay, guys. The price for the main course, salad, mashed potatoes and soup plus a Coke, ended up being around 20 euros. Now you might think, maybe that's not so much for such a full table, but you have to imagine, in China, you can eat out very well for 2 to 3 euros. So this is really crazy here. This is the most expensive dish I've eaten in 3 weeks in China. It was never more expensive than this. So, a classic tourist trap, but it tasted relatively authentic, except for the curry. Yeah, pretty cool to have tried that. After the Russian restaurant, there was one last item on the agenda, the Russian Villa district of the city. It's something I would have liked to show as well, but it's only there in winter. It's the Harbin Ice Festival, an incredible festival where you can see huge sculptures, palaces, and entire landscapes. Everything is made of ice and snow, and this ice comes from the nearby Songhua River, so it's locally sourced and then used. A real highlight, but it's only available in January, and then in January it unlocks 52,000 guests per day, so it's a recommendation. If you ever visit the city, feel free to come in winter, that's when you can also see this amazing ice festival. We've arrived in the neighborhood where Russian villas are said to be. I don't see any villas yet, but I definitely see architecture that's Russian inspired, but we want to find the villas. I want to see how wealthy Russians lived here then. Hopefully we'll find something. I think I imagined it a bit differently. Nowadays these buildings, these villas, are shopping centers and not real residential buildings anymore. I've been walking around for half an hour now and I can't find any real villas like I imagined. This is more what I meant. See, this has a Russian touch to it, or here? Yeah, guys, I don't know. Am I just imagining that it looks Russian because that's what it said on the internet? Or can you actually call this Russian? Although now I see a tall blue building, you could argue that it has to be Russian. After a long search in this neighborhood, I did it. I found a few last Russian essences, for example with this monument, and it's even in Russian. And it says on the monument, "Eternal glory to the heroes who fought for the freedom and independence of the Soviet Union." Basically, so it's even labeled in Russian. Here, a hammer and sickle, and above, a building that looks like it could be from Moscow. Yeah, guys, it took a long time. The day before yesterday was Victory Day. That's why you can still see all the flowers and the celebrations here. Did we actually find something Russian behind us? So that was it. 2 days in Harbin, one of the last Russian cities in the People's Republic of China. We end here at the War Memorial at the Russian. The Russians haven't been here for 100 years. Yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe to support my channel. Check out the video here. From Georgia, I visited a German village in Georgia. Otherwise, we'll see each other again soon. Until then, bye.